What's up, everybody? So, so right now I'm kind of waiting on Nomar to come on. So basically, Nomar and I are going to be talking about UFOs and some really weird stuff that went down on, or actually in one of his books. So Nomar is an author, and he wrote this book, which is really cool, UFOs over Maine, and it's basically a collection of just UFO stories over Maine. It's super cool. And so Nomar and I, we kind of teamed up, and we are currently going to be working on a documentary together. He should be on here in just a second. And man, there's all kinds of people popping in here. It's pretty crazy. There's Tiffany and Abe. What's up, Abe? Abe will definitely be on the documentary if I can squeeze him in there, man. We're going to be talking to eyewitnesses and trying to like really get their stories out there. And I think that's pretty important, you know. It's definitely something I want to do. All right, Nomar, where you at, man? So, I don't know, Abe, you want to come on and talk until Nomar gets here? We'll talk about your sighting. It'd be pretty cool. He pops in here. But yeah, Abe had a pretty awesome sighting, and you can actually listen to his self interview on my web or on my YouTube account. I kind of like copied his sighting and stuck it on my YouTube account because I thought, cool. Oh, there he is. What's up, man?
Hey, what's up, Bill?
Not much. I was sitting here talking about your sighting. I was saying that I'd love to get you in on our documentary we're going to be having because I love your sighting and your story is just awesome, dude. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's quite the story. You know about the story, so it'll be a good time. Hopefully, we can make it happen, and I can be a part of you guys' project.
Yeah, and you're welcome to share some stuff right now, man. First off, who are you? Like, just to let people know who you are and what you do.
Oh, you got me, Bill?
Yeah. So, who are you, Abe? Like, what do you do, man? Like, what's your background?
Well, good question. I was a lobster fisherman for a long time. I've lived in Maine all my life. I've been a lobster fisherman for a long time. I live in central Maine now. I was a pro wrestler for 10 years. Had a hell of a time with that. Met a lot of famous people. And I run a body shop, a big body shop in central Maine.
Nice. That's awesome, dude. And
Yeah,
I'm just still tripping out that you're a pro wrestler. That's just such a cool thing, man. It's great.
Yeah. Hey, I had a great time doing it. Like I said, I met a lot of people. I learned a lot of things. It was more of a big hobby of mine. But like I said, I had a great time, and it was fun. But I put that in the past. I haven't done anything for like 6 years, but it was a good time.
Nice. So I'm going to go ahead and just, I think we ought to share your story. I think that it's okay to share it now and then also on the documentary, So do you mind sharing a little bit about what happened?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about it. Luckily, my kids are being good right now, so they're not screaming in the background. So in a nutshell, I was about 9 or 10 years old. I think I was about 10, summer of 1992. And I'm from the coast of Maine. Like I said, I was a lobster fisherman. And my dad used to take me and my brother on car rides at night, just, because we were always we were crazy kids and, boys, what boys do.
Right.
But my dad one night just wanted us to take a ride. So we took a ride down on Cape Split. And probably a few people that are watching this, they probably know where that is. And it's in Addison, Maine.
Oh, yeah, kind of down.
And, yeah, down east. And anyways, we were pulled over down there. It's right on the water. And if you look out, there's like 3 islands. I'd say about a mile away. Excuse me. And I was sitting in the back seat. My brother was in the passenger seat, and my dad was driving. And like I said, we were stopped, and it was a bright night out, moon. There wasn't any clouds. The moon was glaring off the water. And my father said, boys, do you guys see those lights? And like I said, there was 3 islands. In the middle island, there was these 2 lights. And from where I was sitting in my car, if you held a dime up to your face, they were about that big. So about the size of a F-250 or something. Maybe a little bit bigger. I don't really know. It was a long time ago.
Right.
Oh, go ahead.
It was fairly large, though. I mean, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good size. And so there were these 2 lights, and my dad had the window down, and there wasn't any sound. No sound whatsoever. And these two lights were hovering over this island. And I don't know, we watched them for, I would say maybe 3 or 4 minutes. And we had the radio on, and the radio went static.
Really?
Which I was just watching these lights. My brother went crazy. He was just like punching the dashboard and, come on, Dad, let's go. And I remember my dad trying to tell him to be quiet and don't worry about it. You know, it might be a helicopter. Well, there wasn't any sound. And these 2 lights started going up the Addison River. I remember my dad, we took off and we wanted to go to the Addison Bridge, which is probably 3 miles from where we were to the Addison Bridge. And I remember looking down at my dad's speedometer, and he was going like 75 miles an hour. I mean, he was flying. And you could kind of see these lights through the trees, you know. Well, we got to the Addison Bridge, and we sat there for a little bit, not very long, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. And these 2 lights started coming towards us up the river. My dad had the car door open, and I was still in the back seat just looking out the window. And of course, my brother was going crazy still. These lights were about, I would say, 150 feet off of the ground. There wasn't any sound, zero sound. And they got about a quarter of a mile from us when we were next to the bridge. All of a sudden, I remember they like stopped, and within a blink of an eye, they were gone. And there was a sonic boom.
Wow.
Yeah. I get a little choked up about it because I wish my dad was here to tell everybody the story, right, because he could probably remember a lot more details than I can. But it was an unbelievable thing. These things were gone in a split second. Just gone. And
it's crazy.
It's quite the story, you know. It's quite the story.
Yeah, it definitely is. And for me, it's really interesting to hear this story. It's one that I actually hear a lot. Just a couple days ago, a buddy of mine, he was telling me essentially the same kind of thing. He said that he saw a ship like not too far from his aunt's house. Like you could actually see the lights off of the ship at his aunt's house.
Yeah.
Called him and was like, hey, there's a UFO down here. Come down here, check it out. And by the time he got there, it was gone. And then he goes back home, and then she calls him again. She's like, man, there's a friggin' UFO back down here. And he goes back down and it's gone. So I guess he leaves and comes back home little, just a little bit later and actually sees it. And he said he could actually see inside of it. And he said basically the same thing you did. It had a couple lights on it, dead quiet, took off, and was just out of there, man. And,
it's unbelievable, but there's a lot of people on here that I didn't expect to look at this thing. This is cool, though. Thanks for having me on anyways. But I don't talk a lot about it because the UFO subject is very touchy.
Oh yeah.
Because people, and I'm not saying I saw an alien. I don't know what I saw.
You saw a UFO.
All I know is that these two lights disappeared in a split second. That's all I know. And it's like the political stuff. If you say anything about political stuff, people attack you. They say stuff. It's the same. It's kind of the same thing with the UFO community. It's a very touchy subject, but my story is pretty interesting.
It is, man, and it's legit. I believe everything you said. And
oh yeah, absolutely. My brother can say the same thing.
Nice. Yeah, so I'm excited to I'd like to go visit the place where you saw this. I mean, that's my goal, is to get you back out there and let you really describe it. That would be really cool.
I'm a DJ. I do weddings and stuff. Yep. I've been doing that for like 14 years also. And I love doing it. And I travel down home quite a bit during the summers to do gigs. And I was actually down next to there last summer, and I went to the spot where we were parked. And it's like I had a major flashback of the actual event. It was pretty cool. I mean, and like everything that I think about when I tell the story, it's like perfect when I was there. It's like spitting image of what I saw. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, definitely. All right, brother, well, I'm going to let you go, man, and I'm going to try to get Nomar on here and talk about our new project.
Yeah, my kids are tearing the hell out of my house right now, so I got to go tend to them. Right. But, hey, everybody, thanks for coming in, Bill. I'll talk to you soon.
See you, man.
Go, Pat.
Yeah.
Number 6. Go, Pat. See you guys.
Later. All right, so that was awesome. So yeah, that was my buddy Abe. Let's see when we get Nomar on here. All right, so we're trying to add Nomar now. He's been kind of waiting patiently in the queue, waiting to come on. I'm excited to get him on because, man, he is just a wealth of information. He just kind of knows everything about everything when it comes to UFOs in New England. There he is. What's up, brother?
What up?
Oh, man. Just talking to Abe. Did you check that out? Did you listen?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I love his story.
No, that's good. That's good stuff. Yeah, I love Abe's story, and he can tell a good story too. And there's, when he's telling the story, there's just this thing in his eye, and there's passion behind it. Like it's tough to maintain that all these years later if it was a bunch of BS. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, and you would know, man, because you've probably interviewed more people in New England about UFOs and stuff than anybody. I mean, you've got at least 2 and now 3 books coming out, right?
Yeah, I got 2 going right now, and I'm working on a 3rd one right now. But yeah, I got a new one coming out in July. And again, it's about UFOs in Maine and abductions. And we're talking military witnesses. We're talking crop circles, men in black. And it just really gets into a lot of stuff.
Wow, that's awesome. Do you ever sleep, or you just kind of go all the time?
I definitely sleep. I love sleep. So yes, but I don't waste time in between sleeps.
Gotcha. So yeah, this new book, man, what's it about? Is it kind of the same basic sort of kind of thing like with UFOs in Maine?
Yeah, but just super in depth though. The first one was kind of like a starter guide to UFOs in Maine, if you will, and this one is it's called Otherworldly Encounters. Comes out in July, and this one is more. It's just more in depth. I speak firsthand to a lot of the witnesses in the book. Some of them I couldn't. Some of them didn't want to. I also go on site for 5 or 6 of the stories in the book, and I do my own investigation and then write about those in the book. There's a story of a flying humanoid in Camden, Maine, and I went on site with that. My son actually joined me on one night on the investigation. That was pretty cool. So I write about all that.
You can't talk about flying humanoids, man, without giving me a second about that, because I have such a it's kind of ridiculous, really. I got flying humanoids.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell me about this flying humanoid in Maine. What's up with that?
Yeah, it was 2001. And this kid, he was 17 at the time. He's in his 30s now. He lives in Wells now. He's not in the area anymore. But I got the address of the location, and so I went on site there. But in 2001, it was about 6 o'clock in the afternoon. He was walking home, and he started hearing this like chirping, squeaking sound, and it sounded to him like a really loud mouse or something. So he looked down because he really didn't want to step on it. And as he's looking down, he kind of sees a shadow go on the ground, but can tell it's a shadow from up above him, you know? And so he looks up, and then that's where he sees like this 4 to 5 foot long torso with a wingspan of about 25 feet, which is insane. Like, that's a massive wingspan. He sees that fly over him, and he can tell this is the thing making the sound. As it flies over him, he's really close to his house. So it actually kind of dips down and then flies over the house. And behind his house, there's a marshy area. And as he flew by the house, he could tell the wingspan because he measured it against the eaves of his house. And the eaves of his house is about 25 feet. And so that's how he got the wingspan. And again, it went behind the marshy area of his house. So he thought that was really strange. He told some people about it, and they said, you're kind of crazy. You probably saw a sandhill crane, which is in the area. I mean, people don't see them too often, but they are, indigenous to the area. But he's like, nah, man, like I've lived in Maine my whole life. Like I know birds. Like this was weird. And he described the head of it as having like these weird tubes. I don't know. He drew it. Yeah, he drew it, and the picture's going to be in the book. But like it had tubes like for a head.
Weird.
It's weird. Yeah. And then after that, he started having these dreams. And in the dream, he would be in the same spot where he saw it fly over him in the street. And when he looks up, instead of the flying humanoid, there would be a massive UFO. And as soon as he looked at it, it roared to life and then took off. And I asked him if it felt like a dream or if it felt like a memory. And he's thinking it feels more like a memory than a dream. But he describes it to other people as a dream, and it's kind of interesting because there's some parallels to the John Keel Mothman Prophecies book where there's concurrent themes with, sighting of a flying humanoid, sighting of UFOs, at the same time. This wasn't his only encounter either. A couple of years later, he had gone off to school, came back for the summer, and he's driving around town with a buddy. And they're actually in a affluent area of Camden. They got some nice houses over there. So, so he was flying over. He was driving over in that area. And as he's driving, him and his buddy, this thing kind of splats against the windshield. And to them, they kind of thought it was like a paper mache thing. It just like splat. And it turns out that they could see that this whatever hit their windshield had wings, and it appeared dead, but it also appeared like translucent. And so they're looking at this thing, and the car's like kind of coming to a stop. And as the car comes to a stop, it wakes up in a flutter and takes off. And it takes off, in his opinion, towards the same like marshy area of town. But this was much smaller. So was it a baby flying humanoid? Like what? So then he had another minor encounter another summer. It was a different summer. And he was close to the marshy area, and he was with his girlfriend at the time. And they were laying on top of his car or on the hood or something, and just like watching the stars and talking. And he started hearing that chirp, chirp, chirp sound coming from the marshy area. And he's like, oh, snap. I know that thing is nearby, Wow. So those are pretty much his experiences. But he did follow it up with now he's married to that same girl. And in Wells, where he lives now.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Bless you, son. In Wells, where he lives now, you gotta love live. he kind of forgot about it, but he remembers going into the bathroom to like brush his teeth, and he could see a UFO out the window just like hovering over the treetops. And this reoccurred a few times, but he like subconsciously like put it out of his mind, or consciously I suppose put it out of his mind. And then once I started talking to him about this stuff, he remembered it, you know. So it wasn't really something he was carrying around. It was kind of like after we talked, you know. So that was fascinating.
Yeah. Do you find that happens a lot, that you start to have maybe like an interview with someone and then they start remembering more and more during the interview?
Oh yeah. It gets pretty intense sometimes. It can get emotional. You know, there was a woman that I
You know, I'm
interviewed. Go
interrupting, but
ahead.
just a minute ago, Abe, he was like getting a little choked up thinking about it. You know, like I think there's almost like a PTSD kind of that's
Yeah,
associated.
I'm glad you said that. Excuse me. There's a woman named Rose Hargrove. I believe that's her last name. I interviewed her for my book, and she is a nurse, and she wrote a scientific excuse me, she wrote a medical thesis on PAS, which is post abduction
No way.
syndrome, which is yeah, which is very similar to PTSD, and that stress levels and things like that pretty much mirror PTSD. And she will find these in people that have never seen war, that have never had a traumatic life experience that they remember, maybe like a horrible car wreck or a death of a loved one or a murder in the family, like nothing like that. All these people remember is being abducted,
Wow.
and they have similar traits to people with PTSD. It's very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. You know, obviously I've been researching the whole Betty and Barney Hill thing for a while, and I believe that she
Yeah.
with something like that. I believe that she suffered with something later on in life, and I don't know what it really was, but I think that she had a lot to deal with, man. You know, yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
saw,
Yeah. Yeah. That story is pretty
yeah,
intense.
she saw a lot of weird stuff in her older, as she got older, and
Yeah. She kind of turned into a makeshift investigator, because of what happened.
absolutely, man, no doubt about it. Um, we're getting all kinds of comments, which is super cool because like that's kind of why we wanted to do this tonight. We wanted to try to involve people in what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so again, Nomar and I, we talked a few days ago, and we decided to do a documentary together, which is fantastic. And we've kind of came up with some pretty solid ideas. We have some we're going to be interviewing that are super cool. But we're struggling for a name, right? Like what? Like
Mhm.
I don't know. We're struggling for a name. What do you think, man?
Well, you came up with, I think, the closest thing that we have to a pretty cool name, and that's Abducted New England. And I'd like to put it out there. We both like to put it out there, to all of you guys. Can you come up with a better name? Can you help us out?
Absolutely. You know, we're looking for help with a name. You know, because essentially what we're going to be doing is we are going to be talking to some very
Saucer
respected,
searchers.
yeah, very respected academic people. People who really specialize in this. I'm not talking, just Joe Blow off the street. We got some really awesome people. So we're gonna be talking to them and getting their views on really all of this, all the whole UFO thing. And then we're gonna be talking to a lot of eyewitnesses and hopefully one or two abductees because I really truly want to understand what happened to these people. You know, like
Yeah,
want to talk
yeah,
to Betty and Barney Hill, but you can't do that now. So like
right,
I
right.
really want to talk to someone who's been abducted.
And not to mention what we were just saying before about, this can be emotional. It's hard for people to come forward. It can be a little easier when it's the written word, and I was able to, get some people to talk about their stories. But even then, I had to change some of the names sometimes, and so getting somebody on camera is pretty tough too. And but we're trying our hardest, and make something good for everybody.
Right. I like this one that Geraldine Rinaldi, I believe you pronounce her last name, just said. Wicked abductions. Wicked.
Hey, that's not
Right.
bad. And Geraldine's actually featured in my book. She is a UFO witness.
Oh wow, nice. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
You can be on our on our documentary too if she wants. But one of the stories I was I was just reading your book, UFOs over Maine, and before we get off here, I've got to talk about getting Bill on camera is hard. That's funny. Yeah, so I got to talk about one of the stories in here because it's really my favorite story in here. Just to be really honest with you, like I've read them all. This is definitely my favorite. So it's called The Curious Case of Wendy C. Allen, and from what I've read, she is one interesting lady. What can you tell me about this?
Well, it all started, I want to say 1979. She was 4 years old, which is actually the same age that I had my first sighting. And she met what she calls an amphibious fairy. So we're kind of talking like a swamp thing, if you will, a creature from the Black Lagoon is how I picture it. She does do some sketches of it. But so she says that she met this amphibious fairy, and his name is Idio.
I want to like get a picture in my head of what an amphibious fairy looks like. So I'm kind of picturing like the swamp man with wings. Is that kind of close?
I think maybe I can't remember the name, but in Hellboy, the movie Hellboy, the guy that swims in the tank all the time.
Yes. Yeah, more like that guy with wings.
Yeah, I don't know the name. I'm sure people watching are like, "Oh, this is the name, idiots!" But yeah, it's that's what I picture in my head. So like a nicer looking, a polite creature from the Black Lagoon. So I picture webbed, hands and things like that.
Right.
But anyways, back in '79, she said she met this amphibious fairy, and he is present in her life to this day. And this took place in Old Orchard Beach. So about 4 years later, 82, 83, something like that, a loud bang was heard in a part of Old Orchard Beach. A lot of people came outside to check it out. And when people got outside, they saw this UFO hovering there, and then it just kind of took off. But everybody kind of dismissed it, but almost like in an M. Night Shyamalan way, it was like, okay, this weird thing happened, and or like Stepford Wives, or like Get Out, or you know what I mean, where they're just like, something's happening but nobody talks about it. That's how it came across. But again, that's Wendy's perspective.
Right.
And Wendy has autism, and she communicates and perceives things differently. So that could be chalked up to that. I'm not sure.
The reason I wanted to bring this up also is I've heard, I've never really dealt with this personally, but I've heard that people on the spectrum sometimes are able to communicate better than we can with the paranormal and that sort of thing. So it makes me wonder. I don't know, man. I just don't know how any of this stuff works, but I've definitely heard that people might be better in tune. I don't know. It's just interesting to me,
Yeah. And I've heard that too, and I don't know, but if there's anything to it, then Wendy's the perfect candidate, and she eventually is kind of it turned into a bit of a sad story. She's doing actually much better now. You can actually follow her on Facebook. Just search for Wendy C. Allen. She's always posting updates and videos and all this cool stuff. But for a while, she was homeless and living in people's backyards and had a rough go of it for a long time. She started her own ministry, and with very few followers, but she lives, for lack of a better term, an eclectic lifestyle. But over the past 10 years or so, things have gotten a lot better for her, it seems anyway. And but still sees and all these things.
Right. All right, man. I think this is a good spot to end our talk tonight. It's again, like, we are doing a documentary, and if you have seen a UFO and you have a really cool story, kind of like Abe had earlier, let me know, or let Nomar know, because we are basically, I guess, kind of interviewing people to decide who we want to bring on our documentary. And Yeah, we also are looking for names for our documentary. Is there anything that you want
Yeah.
to talk about right quick before you get off here?
I think he covered it. We're doing a documentary. We're interested in stories. Send them along, and we'll be in touch. And we're really excited to present this to everyone.
Definitely. Where can they find your book?
They can find my book honestly wherever books are sold. A lot of people go to Amazon to get it, so you can just do a search for Nomar Slevik, and my books will come up. You can pre-order my new book. It's in a pre-order status, and the name of that book is Otherworldly Encounters, and it should be one of the first books that come up on Amazon. Also, there's a website that I really like. It's called indiebound.org, and that is a website that helps keep mom and pop bookstores in business by using their website to search their stores. So it's pretty cool, and you can find it there as well.
Nice. All right, awesome. Well, everybody, thanks for joining us, and have a good night, Nomar, man. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, you have a good night too. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Yep, later.